Hello, hello, hello. It's Sean Bischoff, and you're enjoying episode 3 of Together. It's a podcast that Triumph put together to meet really cool people, and also where I say the word like every 25 seconds. I have a really cool guest on today. First things first, though, I want to say thank you guys to everybody that's been enjoying the podcast. The first couple episodes have gone really great. I've got to say, I personally didn't really know what to expect with the show. So to see the support on YouTube and also the support on iTunes has been very cool. So I appreciate you guys for watching. If you get a minute during the show, if you're on Twitch or you're on YouTube, go check us out on iTunes or Spotify, whichever platform you prefer, and give us a 5-star on iTunes. It helps a lot. It means a lot. And if I get more 5-star reviews, I gain more power. And that is my goal. Today's guest, I'm very excited to have him on. He's the co-founder and CGO of New England Whalers. His name is Diego Freitas. He's a good guy. We have a lot of similarities in style and and beard. I'm really excited to bring him on the show today. We have a lot to talk about, and without further ado, let's just get into the show. Diego, what's up, man?
Thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited. I love talking about esports, and let alone, of course, any opportunity I get to talk about the Whalers or anything we're involved in is exciting. So yeah, happy to be here. Followed you guys at the start of the podcast. So again, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you on, and I appreciate you for joining us on short notice. Usually we schedule these like really far ahead, and for you to come on short notice has been really cool. So thank you.
It was very difficult penciling you guys in my super busy schedule.
Super busy Saturday morning schedule, dude. Well, listen, man, let's start off this conversation by talking about Whalers, because I've seen Whalers around for a while. Obviously, before I joined Triumph, I'd known about Whalers. You guys have been established for a few years. And so can you just give me a little bit of backstory on yourself and a little bit of backstory on the Whalers?
Yeah, so I co-founded the Whalers with a good friend of mine that I met when I was working as a technician for Apple. It was my first job as a remote worker in this world back in 2014. So I was given the opportunity with Apple to kind of see if they wanted to venture into gaming and esports. I was better known within our employees as one of the gamer guys, because I was in like 30 different gaming chats within the company itself. But I was tasked to kind of research esports. It was, the first boom of League of Legends at the time. So they were very interested to see if they wanted to do any additional marketing, or if they wanted to become a sponsor, either with maybe a team, because, there were companies like iBuyPower, for example, that had a team, maybe a Team Apple or something like that they were interested in, or just a general sponsor for events or teams. So I took about 2.5 months to be able to like research the industry itself. I already knew some as a consumer, not on the business side. So I kind of really got acquainted onto the business aspect of gaming esports during that time, and then presented everything to the head of gaming at Apple, which is the App Store. And it took them like 15 minutes of questions to say no. So kind of really engaged. Something that I really didn't know that I had interest in. I grew up playing games. I think most of us have that similar story growing up, and that's why we're involved in this industry now. But it really interested me as far as the potential the industry has as far as on the esports side first. In competition, I'm a super competitor. Like, I live in New England. Like, we got teams. We got the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, Red Sox, New England Revolution. Out of the 5, 4 of them are regular competitors, and we just get so used to winning up here. Not a bragging as a fan or anything, but I'm super competitive, and just to fulfill my fandom for sports, but also like, don't get in front of me or don't get in my way with Uno kind of a thing. Like, I like the competition. So seeing this whole growing aspect in esports and seeing that there's still an opportunity, or there was still an opportunity to grow within it, I then got interested in doing something ourselves. So kind of mulled over a little while, and right when TSM, which is now Astralis, had their whole fallout with their contract, And then they were, kind of releasing the idea of starting a player-owned organization, is where I kind of decided with my buddy. I was like, hey, let's start our own org. Let's start, small, and let's, build up on rankings. And obviously Counter-Strike is, I think, the biggest opportunity because it offers a zero spend, quote unquote, because, you have league fees and different, if you, maybe an expense to go to a LAN or something like that, but there isn't a huge franchise tag like Overwatch, now for Call of Duty, League, Dota's tough because the salaries are super inflated there as well. So obviously with us, with a very small, personal budget that we had individually for two people, we decided CS. I love CS. I grew up playing CS. So it just seemed like the best one. I had the most knowledge within CS in order to feel comfortable to build a good roster there. So January 2017, we registered GG Esports LLC here in Massachusetts with the operating name of New England Whalers. Had a great artist buddy of mine create a logo that I had, in my mind for the long time. In God bless a lot of people that have good advice around us, because we were going to be the Boston Fishermen for a good while. So,
I think it has a nice ring to it.
It doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue too well, but we started with the Whalers, and the Whalers itself has a lot of history in the Northeast because the Hartford Whalers hockey team, they later got purchased by an investor and brought down to Carolina. So you know them as the Carolina Hurricanes now. And that brand kind of just still resonates here in the Northeast. People still are super hopeful for that team to go back to Hartford, Connecticut, but it's never going to happen. So it was a good flair. We decided to go, approach it with obviously a new twist, because esports is going to be around forever now. So kind of putting the name, at least, given a new breath of life here, has been really fun. It's helping us, and it enables us to have really interesting conversations, because everybody at least here in the Northeast, they at least want to have a sit down to, like, let me hear about the Whalers. Like, they're super interested just because of the past history of the hockey. And we went from there. We started with an open division CS team. They were very bad. But I love the guys. They dedicated. I'm still really good friends with them until today. And slowly we kind of started including other games into our competition portfolio itself. So Overwatch was our next step, because originally Overwatch, they were going to stay community based, and then out of nowhere they announced their pro league. Didn't have $12 million to invest into that, so we just went in with a open division team in Overwatch. We're pretty successful there. We stayed a top contending team there for a good while. Never made it to contenders, but we have a lot of players that have since then gone to different contenders team and teams that were in trials as well. From Overwatch, we also got into Call of Duty, PUBG, Rainbow Six, Rocket League, and now we're here today with now just a CS team. I think obviously with the year that everybody's had, we reassessed, decided just to focus on our CS team. Rightfully so. They need the attention. I love giving them the support that they need in whichever way possible, whether it's me just being there as a cheerleader, the rah-rah, the super energy, or everything else, like speaking with leagues and admins during events, pre and post. And now we're in the position of, like, what's next kind of a thing. This year obviously threw a curveball at everybody, but we're super hopeful. Obviously, position where the team's at right now. We're top 5 North America, placing in the top 30 in world rankings for HLTV. Top 50 for ESL Pro Circuit rankings. So, we're at that stage now. So, in comparison to what we're competing against, and I think I laughed when you put this in our document for the podcast of the smaller orgs in comparison. I think we're in a wonderful place. It gives us a great opportunity to be able to speak with potential investors, big or small. we're doing things differently. And I think that's kind of what sets both of our orgs apart at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, like that story is pretty reflective, I think, of a lot of people's stories starting their organizations in our space. Like, it's very similar to how Triumph was. Triumph started just sort of an open division Overwatch, and you build up, you figure out what works, you try to fit into systems, and it's funny that you guys are from Boston because our founder, one of our co-founders, Scott, who's our CEO now, he's from Boston as well, and that's how we got in connection with. Well, I don't know if you'd call him a Bostonian or if you call him a Minnesotan, but that's how we got in touch with Kevin Garnett actually originally. So, and even our producer Chase is from Boston. I forgot. So there's definitely a lot of Boston roots going on between both of our companies. So a lot of respect for that. Look, I think there's something to be said about downsizing this year and downsizing to focus on CSGO. And this was another thing that made me think of talking to you, man, was because we had sort of a similar line of thought this year as well. I mean, we used to compete in a lot more games. We used to be in Apex. We tried a little bit in Valorant. Obviously, we used to be in Overwatch. We had a contenders team for a few seasons. But this year, it was like, man, like it's really hard in all these other games to really build our brand and also do what we want to do at a developmental scale with the team properly. Because, in some games, it's just so hard to break into top tier. Obviously, with Overwatch League, if you're not operating in Korea or you're not operating with $20-30 million in your pocket, you're probably not going to do much there.
Yep.
But CS, I always said, was like the best place to start because to your point, like it's merit based in a way, like the ESEA system going up through the ranks between open all the way up to MDL and then ultimately to Pro League. I think it's the best system for, what we do as small organizations, right? Building your brand, building your players up, scouting new guys, and kind of having an underdog tail. It's the best format to do so. So when I say small organizations, that leads into like the current state of North American Counter-Strike is very odd, right? And I think you chuckle for the same reason I chuckle when I think of our situation in CS right now, because suddenly with teams going to Europe, right? Many, for those of you that are listening or watching the podcast that aren't familiar, we are living in a situation right now where Counter-Strike has been dominated by European teams being the best teams in the world. And so a lot of the huge tier one organizations in NA are looking to go compete in Europe. Obviously teams like Cloud9, Gen G are over there right now. Even MIBR is over there. Liquid's going back and forth. Evil Genius is going back and forth. So all these tier one orgs, Furia as well, are going to EU and sort of like leaving us in the dust, which creates this void, right? It creates this vacuum of space that has to be filled. And you're seeing a lot of MDL teams, much like the Whalers, even though I think you guys are probably on the path to be in the Pro League very shortly. A lot of MDL teams stepping up and playing in these large tournaments. And also alongside the fact that we're playing online, it's changed the format of all these tournaments. So it's been a really weird year. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on what your philosophy, what our roles are in our position in North American Counter-Strike, or just in Counter-Strike in general. Because it's always been my opinion that teams like ours are responsible for the next generation of talent and responsible for the next generation of professionals. And without teams like ours and, some of the other teams that are alongside of us, if we don't do our job properly, like NACS and CS might never prosper, right? So building your team and competing at the level you guys are now, obviously leapfrogging Triumph into the top 30 this year, which I'm not mad about at all. What do you think your role is with the Whalers and all of this?
Credit's always due to, I think, for our positioning itself. I'll work backwards. It took us a while to be able to get into like the pro practices, right? So we know it's not that it's a closed off group and they don't let nobody in, but you have to generate that interest in that level of competition for the teams that are in the top of North America. So, not including us. So there's obviously Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, Chaos, Gen G, and then I'm gonna put this is months ago, not currently. Gen G, when they were still competing well here in NA, Triumph. So those that remained the top 5 for basically like the whole year. And us having to, get into the next tier as far as being pro caliber competition here for North America, we had to grind a lot. Our players had to grind a lot. I say this constantly to them. All the credit is due to them because their hard work and their work ethic to be able to do what they've had and still get there. Still only practice against top to mid tier MDL teams. Sometimes having to go even further down the list, even maybe some top advanced teams in order to fill their practice schedule and still get better. That's very difficult to do when, they usually go like 30, 32 rounds in a scrim and they're stomping people out. So, I literally have seen their practices where they've gone like 20 rounds, like going to B constantly, just so then they can try anything and everything versus an opponent, and literally letting them know like, hey, just stack 4 to 5 people here. Like, so yeah, man, like it's, I'm not panicking. Our players aren't panicking with this whole, NA's dead and the pro teams going to Europe. It's just the circumstances that we have that we're dealing with. There's no lands. So whatever events these pro teams are able to get to, they're going to go because, with these organizations that have massive budgets, operation budgets in comparison to ours, they're also needing to generate additional interest for other, financial verticals that these companies have, which is content. Our biggest thing that we miss is content because we have such, we have a very small team. I have a team of 5 people, aside from our players and our coach. So it's really difficult to be able to do a live stream, clip it, do a podcast, clip it, post on all social media, do announcements on Twitter with a match coming up, scores, all that stuff. So these massive orgs, they need to generate that content because they have, instead of a team of 5, like in comparison to ours, they have like 20 or 30.
Right.
So they need to generate that additional revenue. So at the cost of going overseas, keeping a team there for a while, you have the benefit of the teams are going to stay relevant. They're going to compete against the top teams of other regions. And I think what was the benefit for this year was we continually only kept competing against the top teams of our region. MDL season 34, which was the practice season, we dominated, which was wonderful. It was actually, I think it was the season that Triumph opted out and then they got absorbed into Pro League. We'll take the opportunities as it comes. I think you have to think business first there. A lot of CS fans will see like, oh, well, they just got a free first place, or the Whalers, because Triumph wasn't an MDL anymore. Or it's like, great, that makes the scene grow and mature. And I think that's exactly what North America needs. So I'm super excited for what's happening in the semi-pro scene here in North America because, we're up here staying relevant, not just for semi-pro, but in the pro circuit with ESL, IEM, and DreamHacks. It's giving the opportunity for Team One as well to stay relevant, stay competitive, and also in all the other pro circuits, stay relevant, take, if not rounds, taking maps off of teams that are higher ranked. Again, any opportunity that we're able to get to play against these teams, we're gonna take. So it was a huge surprise. Obviously, it was a surprise to us when we upset Furia. For
it was a big win, man. That was so cool.
It was massive. It was absolutely massive. I was freaking out. I was actually in the fan cams for it, so I was literally freaking out with everybody else. It was exciting, but it wasn't that kind of a surprise where it was like I was shocked. I was surprised, but I wasn't shocked because we have been practicing with Furia and all the other top 5 NA teams for the past 3 months before that event. Especially Furia, like it's a team that we constantly grind because their play style is so different than literally all the other teams here in North America. So again, surprised but not shocked. So that just shows again what goes on behind the scenes, at least for the guys practicing and grinding with whatever they have available. Sure, those teams are in Europe currently. They're competing there and overseas. It's all good. We're going to make do what we have here and continue the same way we did, months prior. So really too freaked out with the whole NA's dead. It's just it's the times that we're living in. Lands will eventually come back. It's going to be a transition. It's not going to be a full event with a crowd. It's likely just going to be teams and staff to run the event first for a good while. I'd say like 6 months of that before they're eventually TOs will meet up again and reorganize to then structure something with a limited crowd and then a full crowd after that. So it's going to be a year until what we would consider normal as far as like an event to be able to see all these teams compete internationally and not just regionally. But yeah, I'm not super freaked out. I think we're in a great position. You guys there at Triumph as well. You guys are in a great position. We practice all the time with whoever we can get, and we still play these events and we're still top. So it's not affecting performance. I think fans are I don't know, maybe they're annoyed of seeing the same teams compete over and over again, but that's kind of what the pro scene is anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, actually, your opinion on that, having more of a positive outlook on what's been going on in NACS and not, I don't really buy into the whole narrative of CS in North America is dying. I think that's when I look at like my experience in other games, I can tell you like pretty convincingly CS in North America is not dead. The scene is fine. Yep. Of course, it's definitely changing a lot. I mean, this year has created so many challenges, not only for teams like ours, but also teams like Liquid, teams like C9, as well as for organizers. Like our first episode, we talked to my friend Christian, who literally runs tournaments. He's used to running LAN events. And so this year has just changed everybody's dynamic, like how this industry even runs. And so I think the restructuring of North American competition in CS, where everything's online now and you're not going to international lands, and instead of having, 2 North American teams make these big events, it's like every North American team has like a much easier path to these quote unquote big events now. In our position, I think the only healthy way to look at it is that it's a great opportunity for us, not only to get experience as a team and for our players to get experience. Whereas otherwise, if all these teams that went to EU were still here, it would be really, really hard to get this experience on these 20K viewer streams, like for IEM or ESL tournaments. So it's a really great experience for young players, players looking to kind of come up in the scene. But it's also a great experience for organizations like ours to grow our brand and to grow our fans and say, hey, like, look, we're still here. We're still investing. We still believe in the future of Counter-Strike. And I also think that all these teams, most of them are going to come back anyway. I mean, I could see some of these guys staying in EU, like maybe Cloud9 stays in EU. I know Envy's going to come back to NA. I know there's no way Furious stays in EU, like I think a lot of these guys are going to come back. So it's really just a temporary situation, in my opinion.
It really is. And again, it's like, well, I don't know if we're like a CS based completely talk, but I'll bring it up. I'll be the one. Valorant's not really doing too much to affect the CS scene, the competitive scene. So I think there's 2 different things that you can speak. You can speak about the casual and the whole player base versus, in competition in esports. I don't think it's not affecting it too much. Even player base wise, CS numbers are still way, way up. And, they don't tease because it's Valve. They never tease anything, but it's like we're so hopeful with potentially a Source 2 port and what that potentially can mean for the game itself. Literally coming up, is it 20 years or 25 years? 20 years,
so,
right?
Yeah, it's been like 20 years at least.
So it's like there's still a lot that the game has to offer. So when I compare massive FPS titles for esports, because we have to pay attention, I think as a small organization, we have to be able to cease any potential opportunity super early on. I think we have more of a risk to take than any other massive org with, huge budgets. Because we need to find an early footing. So I think right now there's an open door for Valorant. Like I would never leave CS just to take on just to go Valorant full time or just one Valorant team, because the two titles are too similar.
Mhm.
Literally, the audience that is watching and the consumers that are watching and fans of Valorant, they're also fans of CS. This is potentially the first time, even comparison to League of Legends and Dota, this is the first time that you can statistically track that there is a shared fan base between two different esports titles. League and Dota has that separation because if you're a fan of League, you ultimately like hate Dota, or you have this dislike for Dota because the game is so different. It's so different.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Same thing with Dota to League of Legends. So in an FPS, as far as in esports, we only had the comparison of, CS and Call of Duty, which is controller based versus PC based. So it's like, and they are very different mechanically speaking.
Right.
So Valorant literally being the made to compete against CS. Again, it gives it a shared audience. So I have a lot of interest in having a team in Valorant, but in order for us to get there, it's like we have to stabilize more as a company in order for us to do that. Because I have to guarantee my CS division, where they're currently at and more before I can take on any other project. But I don't see it as a competition to take anything away from CS as far as a business, and even a fan myself. I love watching CS. I'm like very far and few of some fans that actually follow MDL, and also follow Pro League because, like you said in the beginning, I think it's we're tasked. We're not necessarily directly, but I think we task ourselves with keeping up with potential up and coming players, because as much as people don't count on us as far as the growth of the industry, I think we know that we have that potential of finding really good young talent, young up and coming talent, which can benefit us as far as a business. Smaller salary and everything that, knowing how to work with younger players. I think the only other successful person in CS that I know works very well amateur players was Steel, and he's off at 100 Thieves now for Valorant. Finding people that knows how to work with players, sticking with that so we can grow it. Again, I think we can potentially do that in Valorant. So there's still a potential there where we can get maybe a top team, but CS is too important for me. As personally, and then also as a business, the operation costs there, with everybody still panicking about North America, there's still massive opportunity. So kind of even going back to our other point, it's opening the door for many other MDL teams to kind of get stabilized and established at that semi-pro tier. And yeah, take advantage of these events. Like Rugrats upset us twice. They took a map off of us. They're the only team that beat us in regular season for MDL, and then they won against us in the last IEM event, IEM Beijing. So, and that's a roster that's they're like, are we Valorant? Are we not? And then they keep mixing in a lot of CS players. So once they see the opportunity and really kind of take the bull by the horns, NA strong, and it's only going to continue strong for a good while.
Yeah, I remember when Valorant was coming out, I was a bit of a Valorant shill, to be honest, because I was like, man, we're going to jump in Valorant early and we're just going to that's where we're going to grow as Valorant. And we had a team for a little bit, decided not to stay in Valorant. Obviously, everyone had to shrink this year with COVID. And so we decided to focus on CS. And ultimately what it came down to, in my opinion, man, was like Counter-Strike is the best game I've ever seen. And I don't know if that's just my opinion. It just, no matter which way I chop it up, I look at how damn good Counter-Strike is as a game and as an esport, as a spectator sport, from a competition perspective. It just feels like it just is the best. And I think Valorant has definitely scared people. Like, I think what we've seen is a lot of people leaving CS who have had a hard time getting to that tier 1 level. So people that have been like muddling around at the top of MDL, muddling around sort of in like a few random sort of low level pro league teams. These players are all like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to Valorant to start my career and start fresh, which is fine. And I think it's totally fair. And I do think that both games can coexist. So I really don't worry about Valorant in terms of whether or not it's going to knock off CS or anything. Like you said, I mean, we're all hoping for a big update, you know, within the next year or two, or I don't know, who knows how long. But
Don't say that. No,
I don't know.
like
CS:GO's been out for
1 to 3 months.
8 years. Yeah, hopefully next month we get an update. CS:GO's been out for 8 years. I always say like one of the biggest challenges in esports in general is like the shelf life of the game that people are competing in. Like that's why I think like creating these leagues like the Overwatch League and the CDL are very dangerous, because the game only has so much shelf life and you're always going to have to come out with the next game. I think Call of Duty is going to do it pretty well because they already come out with a new game every year. So it's already been sort of standard for everyone in the scene. People expect a new game every year and it's all fundamentally the same game. So I think it's going to work because they have that expectation. But the danger for games like League of Legends, games like Counter-Strike, I would assume even games like Valorant, is like it's going to be really hard 10 years, 20 years to keep your game up to date, up to speed, fresh, you know, up to industry standard. There has to be huge updates. So I think CSGO is due for one. I believe that when CSGO does come out, maybe with, well, whatever their new version would be, maybe Counter-Strike New World Order or something. I don't know. You know, like they come out with like a new CS. You know, they might just completely shut Valorant out of the space. I don't know. But
I think we're all anticipating that day. I'm 32, so I've played CS ever since it was a plugin for Half-Life. So like dial-up connection, connected overnight to download it. That's literally, I've played it ever since it became it was released to the public. So I've gone through all of it with CS. So yeah, it's I can see like there was a similar time with 1.6 where it was like what's next, and players are kind of like seeing all these new titles dropping around. You know, back then there was Medal of Honor and Call of Duty. Call of Duty was starting to make its push for esports and bigger competitions itself. League as well, you know, Dota. These games, like I understand how and why they've stuck around and stayed quote unquote relevant all this time, is because majority of their audience is not Western. Majority of their audience is Eastern for us. So they refresh the game with the characters, abilities. You know, Overwatch, basically the same thing. You have maps, characters, and abilities. But like me personally, I think more on the consumer side, just because of just how I grew up I established a career in tech. The consumer is the focal point there. Yes, you want to keep your professionals happy and the organizations you're potentially working with to build out rosters, create content, and keep the publishers ultimately happy, having content and attention to their game title, because that drives up sales, whether it's to purchase the game or in-game items. It's a really interesting economy there. But to stay relevant, League of Legends, obviously, when anytime money is mentioned for anything, it drives a lot of interest. So, you know, what's League buying now? Like 22 million. It's somewhere around there right now. Anytime that there's a mention of either somebody purchasing a League spot from a current competitor or a new organization wanting to get into LCS or any of the professional or franchise leagues of League, it drives interest. The prize pools, so Dota as well. Anytime, honestly, it's the general gaming and esports community only has this huge uptick in surge and interest when the international starts coming into the conversation, because everybody pays attention to that prize pool grow. literally it starts at $1 million
Right.
from Valve and then grows from there, from their their not battle pass. What do they call it? The
For Dota?
yeah.
I have no clue. I don't follow Dota at all. I literally don't know what it's
I'm gonna
called.
call it the TI Battle Pass. I forget.
Yeah.
Forgive me, anybody that loves Dota. Is just not coming to my head at the moment. But that drives it up, and right now it's over 36, 37 million. It's already hit the record, and it's hit records every year.
Yeah, every year.
So again, that drives a more general audience's attention to it because the Battle Pass. It is called the Battle Pass. Thank you. So the numbers is very interesting. And then, of course, because you're competing for a near $40 million prize pool, you have to pay massive salaries in order to stay relevant, because Dota is that. In order for you to compete at a high level, you have to have the best players. It's very difficult to build out a roster and grind to the top. It's usually you have to, poach and pick to build a solid roster in order to compete at that level. So, yeah, it's I don't think anything is going to kick CS out. It does need to have an update. We know this. It's not something that, we're not here with our pitchforks at, Valve's offices and demanding something. I think we're the CS community as organizations, professional players, and tournament organizers. We respect the game so much because they've been able to do so much with such an old game. Old. I'm like not disrespecting anybody, but it is 8 years old in comparison to, Valorant just came out. And as much as it wants to compete, I don't think it's going to compete. A lot of people had that conversation even before Valorant, where it's like, what's the better FPS, Call of Duty or CS, as far as a top 3 esport title? You can't compare them. Controller, PC. The same way people tried to have the argument where, Overwatch is going to overtake CS. And that literally blew up because it never happened. How many players, basically the same thing that happened with Valorant, that went from MDL, semi-pro, CS, that really couldn't make that push into pro. I'm switching to Overwatch. And then, 2-3 months later, they're back in CS. A lot of players.
I know a lot of them, yeah.
So like, I don't see it's going to happen. I think Valorant is going to overtake Overwatch. Overwatch, to me, as a consumer, is too chaotic. You can't get a general viewer or a random viewer or a first-time viewer to be able to stay watching Overwatch for a long period of time. Yeah. And that's what they need, because it's a franchise model. They run it like any other professional sports league. There's sponsorships and that ad revenue. It's not working. Like, I remember, again, hats off to Richard Lewis. His reports are awesome. And I love how much he bashes the Overwatch League, because like, he just knows that like, it's the numbers don't equal up kind of a thing. He's just, he's real. And I respect that. It never was right when they first presented the numbers for the Overwatch League. It wasn't right when they were releasing numbers during the first season into the rolling into the second season. And it's still nothing near of what they promised. So that return on investment for a lot of teams is up in the air. Like, even the latest report of Immortals, potentially selling LA Valiant. Yeah. So, because it's too chaotic. It's Valorant. Yes, any general viewer can potentially follow. It's a bit of a learning curve, because you do have to learn characters and their abilities. But it's a basic game structure, and that's what's worked with Counter-Strike. That is the search and destroy for Call of Duty. That's what's worked with Call of Duty, and it's what's driven a lot of attention, because that gameplay really is simple to follow. It's a simple concept. It's a simple team A versus team B. I think what keeps it driven for console is again, controller and ability to manipulate a controller and the mechanics in game. It is very different to what I think most of us experience on PC. I still think PC is a lot more difficult, because it unlocks the potential of the player, because you're giving them great mechanics or great devices to be able to manipulate what is in the game. But it is a different tier. So I don't think Valorant's a danger to CS. I think it's a good inclusion into esports and the whole industry. But if it's going to overtake anybody, it's not going to be CS. It's going to be Overwatch. I don't think Overwatch is going to last too long. The shelf life, like you said, for Overwatch 2, it's not going to work out, I think, as they intend it. But I do think it is something that Valve needs to pay attention as far as, when do we kick out Source 2? It literally could be global offensive in Source 2.
That's true.
And that will make the game absolutely explode. So I hope, like me being hopeful, I'm a super optimistic person. I think that's what their plan would be, is not releasing a new game and just porting it. A good port, not just like a copy paste. They obviously have some crucial updates with that. But I think that would be the key play there.
Yeah. What's so interesting about like a lot of stuff we're covering is this idea that you kind of started to touch on it, about how a successful esport is not really defined by the actual esport effort. It's really like the game has to be great for the casual audience, the casual consumer. And that struggle is a little bit different, or that effort is a little bit different for every single game, right? Mm-hmm. Like every single game has a different approach. Every developer has a different approach to how they market their game to the casual viewer and the casual consumer. And so like, I think every time a new game comes out and people say, oh, it's going to kill CS, like Overwatch is going to kill CS. It's like, okay, well, let's go take a gander. Let's look at what is Overwatch and what do they provide that CS doesn't. And so if you're going to compete with a game like CS, or if you're going to compete with a game like League of Legends, you have to have a unique experience. That's number one. Yep. I think Overwatch, for example, provides that. I think Valorant kind of provides that. It's definitely a little different from CS with the abilities and stuff. So, okay, it's a unique experience. That's cool. But then you also have to say, like, is this game enjoyable? Which I think is where Overwatch fell flat. Like, I think Overwatch, as you said, it's like not enjoyable for viewers. It's hard to understand. It's a very complicated game. And so the viewership for that game has never been high. Like, it just never has been. When that game launched, like, because Tim the Tatman was streaming it, I think there was always like 40,000 viewers. But ever since Tim started playing Fortnite and all this stuff, that game's never peaked above 20K viewers, like just casually. And so that says that, to me, that, well, the interest is not high, probably because the viewability is like pretty shitty. So no matter what they try to do to set up this league, they can't succeed unless the player base is gigantic and the experience is great for the consumer, So that's their challenge with Overwatch 2. Like, if they don't make updates to the way the game is for playability, if they don't make updates to the way the game is to view as a consumer, why would you watch that over something else? So it's a huge challenge for them. With Valorant, I think they have less challenges, but I still don't know if their experience is going to be better than CS's. I think CS just made, like I said, I think they made a perfect FPS game. But at the same time, I do think they can coexist. I don't see why not. And I never get mad at players who leave for Valorant or leave for X game when it comes out, because I understand the desire to want to go start fresh and be the best in something from day one. I totally understand that. But like you said, with Overwatch, a lot of the teams that we had, a lot of those players went right back to CS, or they end up going to Apex, or now they're in Valorant. It's like these players jump around from game to game all the time.
And even from that, it's like with Apex, the whole BR timing or whatever, that era, this is what I want to say, the whole BR era. I think what killed BR is as a main esports is just how they were broadcasting it. They missed the mark tremendously. Golf is one of the most watched professional sports. It's golf.
It's definitely the most boring sport on the planet, right?
I'm not gonna bash golf, because it's something, I don't know. It triggers something, like, even for us, I think, as gamers. I barely go out to, like, obviously even with Corona now more than ever, but even beforehand, I like my home. I set up my space. This is what I like in, if I want to game. It's less money than me going out, with my friends and, having a few drinks and meeting up. Granted, everybody's married, everybody has kids now. I'd rather, if I'm going to go out, I'd rather, go out with my wife and go on a date night or something like that. But my entertainment time, like I like playing video games. It's a very smart play, and I think we think like this when we as we get older is it's a very minimal cost in comparison. Like the PC that I built it's going to be 7 years ago, and it's still better than majority of what's out in the market right now. Like I future-proof built it. I spent a lot of money. Probably shouldn't have done it at the time, but it's been a great investment because I haven't literally done anything else to it aside purchasing new games. So literally yesterday, I got the new Call of Duty, played that last night, and I don't remember the last time I bought a game before that. It was probably the other Call of Duty. It was probably Modern Warfare. So a year ago. So it's like, I have all these titles, all these games. A lot of them are coming out as free to play, like Valorant. They see the opportunity with in-game purchases. It's not anything that even Counter-Strike defined as far as creating the whole skins market. It's been something that has been around for a super long time. It was perfected by Apple and Google Play apps that offer in-app purchases. Shout out to Candy Crush, because literally they make billions of dollars because they have a working model that just generates a huge cash flow. So even CS saw the value of the marketability that you have as a free to play game, because you're open yourself up to literally the whole platform. How many millions of users just have Steam downloaded on their PC that they now can play CS, and then you've then converted as a possibility of, not only do I need to potentially make them a customer, but now you have millions of customers. How can I make them purchase a skin, whether it be a key to open a box or purchase directly from the market? Because as soon as money starts flowing in the market in whichever way, they're making. So, like I forget what my point was. Completely forgot what it was.
Hey man, we're just talking. We're talking about gaming, man. Listen, it's so funny. Like you bring up I actually wanted to touch on that. It's fine. We can circle back. Like, the free to play format of releasing games free to play and having in-game purchases or in-app purchases has completely revolutionized our space, right? Because I say this about Overwatch. Like I have obviously a lot more experience in Overwatch than I do anything else. And we've been telling them like, and Blizzard made the same mistake, frankly, with StarCraft. Like you need to go free to play. Like look at all of your competitors. Like Overwatch is still $20 to $40. That game's been out 5 years. I'm like, look at all your competitors. Fortnite, biggest game, like it was the biggest game forever. Like, I mean, I would say maybe Warcraft was bigger, but biggest like FPS, whatever. So there are probably some measurements where you can make an argument that Fortnite was the greatest game, biggest game ever, most popular game ever. Fortnite, free to play. That's why it was successful, is because kids could just pick it up and play it. Didn't have to ask their mom for $10 or $20. And they made a killing off in-game skin purchases, right? And I really think that they did it the best so far. But League of Legends, free to play. Call of Duty now, if you want to play Warzone, free to play, right? Look how big Warzone is on Twitch and stuff. Dota is free to play, although I think Dota is an industry plant. I don't really think it's a big game. I don't think anyone plays Dota, dude. I think it's a lie. I don't think it's true. I think people only play Dota to spite League of Legends. Anyway. It's true.
It's in the mic in the back a little.
But every game that you can think of that's popular, Counter-Strike went free to play. Every game is free to play, dude. And so it's become the new standard if you want to have a humongous game. Yeah. And it did come from like Candy Crush. It came from mobile games. And what I was going to lean into is, I remember I was literally watching a video 2 days ago. It was some, info vid or whatever about gaming and gaming demographics. And apparently, according to them, the biggest demographic of gamers in the world is middle-aged suburban women.
Yes. All right. So my wife will probably never watch this podcast, and God bless her soul if she does. I love you. She's a wonderful supporter of mine.
Of course.
I am not calling my wife middle-aged, but my wife is it's not that she doesn't like gaming, and she's like, she has no interest in it. Like, even though through her support is what pushed me to work at Apple, to work at Tesla, and then to start the Whalers. Literally all credit goes to my wife because she enabled me to do so. She still has no interest in gaming with all my current involvement in esports for the past 3 years, right? So my kids play. So I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. All boys, a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling. I love it. It's wonderful. My oldest and my middle child, they play Fortnite together. It's probably one of the most adorable things I've ever experienced. I grew up the third child. I had 2 older sisters, so I always had the desire to like have a buddy, like a brother, somebody to play. I got cousins, but it's like not the same kind of a thing. So they play a lot of Fortnite. We watch how much time they spend in the game and stuff like that because they're young. But there's, like you said, there's so much opportunity there because it's a free to play title. So like I remembered what it was that I completely forgot my thought was. But the whole BR scene itself, PUBG was dominating BR. PUBG had the opportunity because, again, what I think killed BR was their inability to broadcast it correctly. And that's why I started mentioning golf. Golf is watched by a lot of people, and a lot of people that don't even play golf, because they know how to broadcast a tournament. It's individual storylines and it's moments. It's not play-by-play. You cannot do play-by-play with BR, and that's what they try to do in BR esports. They continually still try to do that with a small scene of what has become of PUBG and pro PUBG competitions. So if that's brought into or restructured in BR, I still think BR can come back. I'm not saying Fortnite. Fortnite is like, here's Battle Royale. Let's put Apex and PUBG, and here's Fortnite. Fortnite, like, I can't stand it. Like, I respect the game. If we as the Whalers ever get into Fortnite, it's because it's 100% business opportunity. It's not because I enjoy the game.
It's a cash cow, yeah.
My co-founder makes fun of me all the time because occasionally I'll play because my son wants to do some kind of challenge to unlock a skin or something like that. And it's like, he's 7. I'm going to help him out. Like, and it's playing video games with my son, who's not going to pass up that opportunity. But I think PUBG can make a comeback. I like PUBG. I like Battle Royale titles. Apex, I did not get good at it as well as how I played PUBG. But they're different. PUBG is a realistic shooter versus Apex more a sci-fi shooter. The same way as what I do with the comparison of, like, there's Overwatch and there's CS. There's a wall that divides the two there. Right. And even if you want to, like, but it's like Call of Duty and CS. Like, Call of Duty is an arcade shooter versus a realistic shooter, like, because you have how smokes work and just the mechanics of the game and everything there. But everything kind of ties in. So Fortnite immediately came out as free to play because Fortnite wasn't Fortnite BR. It was just the game Fortnite, which was a survival based game, which you would pay, I think, was like $50.
Nobody bought that game.
I'll be very honest. So I only noticed, man, I don't know, like a year, 2 years into Fortnite, that I had remembered seeing the release video or commercial of Fortnite in an Apple event. And it looked very interesting. It actually looked like a fun little cartoony type survival game because we were, at the time, it was like, it wasn't PUBG. It was DayZ. A lot of people were playing DayZ, and it's like, or AKA Running Simulator, because that game had potential. It took too long to develop. The audience moved on to the next title, which was what was the other game? The one that Summit played all the time. I'm in the pit. Summit to the pit. What's the name of that game? H1Z1. H1Z1. So
yeah.
Yeah, DayZ took too long to develop. H1Z1 came out with everything people were expecting in DayZ, and people changed over. PUBG took way too long to develop. They still stayed at a $50 or $60 price tag as an alpha game on Steam. And then here comes Fortnite free to play with basically everything, plus this, what is this building mechanic that they're putting in? It's what is the huge turnoff for me. If PUBG goes free to play, I think they have huge potential to bringing that a lot of the audience back, as long as they emphasize esports behind it. But it's because one took too long, or because PUBG took too long, Fortnite completely dominated.
Mm-hmm.
and they not only as, oh, we took all your user base, but it's like we made a lot of money, where PUBG was trying to focus on their whole secondary market, instead of like, building out the game, listen to the community as far as the feedback on what to make it better. And then, here comes Fortnite, basically kind of what Valorant is trying to do with CS. They're listening to the community is what they say. I'm going to be very honest to all those out there listening. They listen, they read, but they still have a schedule, and they still have a task list that they have to go through first. Yes, there are crazy exploits and bugs that will be discovered and have to be patched out and fixed immediately. But most of the time, like they're on a schedule. They already have something that they're working through. So yeah, like these titles in free to play, like it's very good for the gaming market. The people are surprised because they don't look at the numbers, or they just don't know about it. But the gaming market is probably one of the most lucrative industries, or consumer industries of all time. People think like the whole music and the movie industry. I forget the numbers. It's like if you add in the music industry and the movie industry, and I forget what was the third, it still doesn't equate to what the gaming industry is. So
Right.
us focusing right now on as esports organizations, so in the esports umbrella under gaming, and esports itself is already $1 billion industry. Again, the interest is there, kind of a thing. So I like free to play when it's done correctly. Again, even kind of going back to that point, it's mobile games, or just the most highest number of gamers is middle-aged women. It offers a good escape. It's free. So for me, being I'm not a closed-fisted type spender, but I watch what I spend my money on, and I like to buy games when they excite me or anything like that. And I buy maybe 1 or 2 games a year. Imagine a person that buys a 99-cent game or a free-to-play game, and that lasts them forever. Remember, Candy Crush obviously comes into mind. Farmville, when that whole thing
I was
happened.
a Farmville master, man.
Man, I got so annoyed with those. But like, again, those games are made specifically. Like, they literally have teams to focus on what graphic of Candy Crush, like what candy icon and color of this candy icon is going to engage this person's vision or attention more. What kind of graphic or effect can we make when it gives a line of however many crushes? Like, all these things are made specific, which is what I think is happening now in these AAA titles. Call of Duty, they know, but let's be real, Call of Duty is a cut and paste every year. It's a reskin version. Like, I like the new Call of Duty, but it's honestly, for me, it's been a reskin of Modern Warfare, which is fine. Modern Warfare was great. It's one of the best ones that they made so far. But having these games that are specifically made to engage the audience and keep their interest, why not, kind of a thing? As long as it keeps their attention, like you said, I'm all for it, kind of a thing, as a consumer and as a business owner into it as well.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I think we're just all part of like this big science experiment, which is the gaming industry, because really that's what it is. I mean, people. I think you and I are both. You and I are pretty close in age. I don't ever say my age, but I'm getting up there, and this all kind of ties together with everything we've talked about. Even with the CS community, it's like all the old guys are saying like CS is dead in NA. It's not the same as it used to be, but I think it's really just a change. Same with like this advent of mobile gaming being way more popular than you or I would ever expect. It's like, as old men that played FPS titles on our keyboards all our life, we're thinking that's stupid, that's dumb, but really it's just like this big experiment that's happening. No one really knows the whole scope of, and we're just along for the ride. I think gaming as an industry is definitely going to be bigger than any other industry. I mean, by some measurements, it already is. And the technology that we have to figure out like what every single person on the planet wants every second of every day is only going to continue to get stronger, and games will get better, and yeah, who knows where we'll be in 10 years. I mean, I think we'll probably get into VR soon, so who knows how that's going to change things, man.
I have my certain reservations about VR, but it's like ready.
Do you have one?
It's like right here, ready to go. So yeah, I got a headset. I got the Rift S.
Yeah.
So I got it in. Actually, I borrowed a Rift from a buddy of mine in the beginning of our quarantine here in Boston, and that it was essential for me and my kids because we just needed to fill their time with something. So I do see that there is a mass market that I think is potentially still untapped with VR, because it is very expensive to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the Quest 2, it's wireless, or you can have it as wireless. You can still tether for better graphics. It opens up the market, but it's still a $350 item just to experience. And a lot of people don't usually like the experience of it because they maybe try the wrong game or VR experience in order to see how it is. So I like it. I specifically got it just to play Half-Life Alyx. I'm a huge Half-Life fan. I still think that they need to do everything and beyond with Half-Life. So if it's made well, like a Half-Life Alyx, or there's this game called Robo Recall that's also it's made by Epic. Very, very well made titles. It's a great experience for my kids. They were playing this game called Playroom, if I remember correctly. It's made for kids. It's a complete VR experience, and you have like mini games that you can play within it. So for them during quarantine and the lockdown, it was really, really great. For esports, I've seen some esports competitions, but it's not nearly as exciting as a keyboard mouse esports competition or a controller base, just because it's not there yet. The games aren't optimized for that experience. It's an interesting concept, maybe, but it's going to take some time. But as a consumer, I'm there. Like I got one. It's a fun thing to fill the void, and it's a great party item when you have people come over and they experience that for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now it's like super early stage. Virtual reality is like barely even skimmed the surface. Like I'm pretty bullish of virtual reality. Actually, I have like a lot of opinions on and a lot of ideas of how it's probably going to go, but who's to say? Like, I mean, right now, definitely, it's like a $300 head controller. It doesn't really. It's kind of a cool like one-time experience. I know like 3 or 4 people I'd say that have like bought an Oculus Rift or I can't remember what the other brand is, but bought a VR headset, and they use it like once, and then they have their friend over and they're like, check this out, and they use it once, and then they never touch it again, right? Because it's just kind of it's a party favor almost. And I think that who's to say that we're even going to need controllers, to play COD, or mouse and keyboard to play CSGO. Maybe in 10, 20 years, we're all just literally like a movie. We're in the space, or maybe we just have the screen on our face, and so all we see is the game, and then like our thoughts control what we do. Like, I don't know. I mean, it could go anywhere. I mean, it's literally...
And it's a Matrix level here.
Yeah, some Matrix stuff, man. I mean, we could get there. Like, I don't think it's going to take that long. I mean, it'll happen on our lifetime for sure. It's just going to look like shit for a while, I guess. But until then, we'll just play CS and Valorant, I guess.
I'm done.
Well, look, man, I appreciate having you on today, dude, and taking some time out of your very busy day, as you said. I want to know, like, what's the near future looking like for New England Whalers? What are you guys looking to get into? I mean, obviously getting into Pro League this week is a huge goal of yours, but other than that, what's your goals right now, man?
Yeah, so I think following our finals for MDL on Wednesday, so we're just a few days away from that. I think it's going to be an interesting off season. So we have contracts that we have to go through with our players, renegotiate, and just that whole business side of things. CS, obviously, is going to continue being the foundation of this of our organization. So yeah, we want to kind of establish more, and as much as we can potentially work hand in hand with the other GMs and owners and CS here for North America, we're going to continue to do. Like I've already, said to you guys, it's been wonderful having an open conversation with you guys at Triumph, because, even the way that you said it, like a few months ago, like, oh, you guys are the new kids on the block, like, expect, the, it's not hazing, but it's just like expect kind of being ignored for a little bit, because, even with the way that I said is like people want you to be established and that you're going to stick around before they invest any time or anything in you, which is understandable. I'm not really offended at all by that. So again, want to work a little bit more closely with some of the orgs to also in approach with, TOs in figuring out events and everything like that, whether it's going to continue online for next year or a portion of the year and then transitioning into LAN. But aside from CS, we have our sights on Valorant. Like I'm super transparent about that. Like I don't like to beat around the bush. I'm very interested in it because it's the title. It's at least the competitive title that I'm currently playing. Just because I'm able to play it with my friends versus like CS, everybody, for a longer period of time. This is as casual players. They just got annoyed at the game. It's just like people were too good at the game, even us, playing either a matchmaking or jumping on Faceit or ESCA, whichever platform, we were all getting, pooped on as far as it goes on everything. So I play some 10-mans with some friends and some groups. But yeah, Valorant is going to be our next game that we're going to get into. I have a lot of interest in jumping back into Call of Duty. We've had a team during during what was the other one? World War II, playing in game battles. And trying to move up challengers there. So it was the first season challengers. And it went well for a while, but it's all about time and dedication from the players itself in order for us to maybe succeed in that title. But I like the way that it's going with, them using the PC platform, but still staying controller based. So I really like Call of Duty, but I think in our sequence of things, it would be Pro League, CS, Valorant, and then Call of Duty after that. We're very FPS, I think, focused as far as our organization. But knowing the business, we need to tie something a little bit more family friendly. Rocket League. Can't ignore it. Love Rocket League. Maybe. It's a great title. It's also free to play. So it's appealing for us to be able even to make content, for example. Like it's a game that anybody can play. We can have Discord night where anybody in our Discord can, we can do some 3-mans or whatever, or women, 3 people, 3 player teams,
3 humans, hopefully 3 humans,
very diverse. So yeah, expansion is next. Our biggest thing that we're working on right now is we're speaking with a few investors. We're nowhere near as far as any of these other companies raising their Series A or Series B. We're going in from our seed round into our Series A with a very different approach. We're undervaluing even potentially what we can get for it, because I think we're very confident in our numbers and in our projections and stuff like that. So that's going to kind of fuel and snowball everything right through there. But in short term, we're got content is king. I love the podcast you guys are doing. We're going to restart our podcast. We had 2 of them, the new podcast and Drop the Anchor podcast, and hopefully another literally 1-minute podcast. So yeah, just content and hopefully getting into our Series A. And then expansion. My dream is to have an HQ here in Boston and establishing that here for the Whalers, and continue being relevant in esports. One thing that I always really wanted was I don't want to just compete because of just my competitive nature. I want to be the best. So I'm very happy where our team is now. I still see that we can continue growing. I think these guys, once they're able to get in with the other top teams of other regions in the world, we could potentially dispute, that top 15, top 10 type place. A lot of these top teams are in a weird spot. Their opportunity. Seize the opportunity always. If it gets us there, it gets us there. I don't mind. So expansion, continued growth, and being relevant in esports. That's what you can expect from us. Yeah.
I like that attitude. You should join us in COD, man. Honestly, you should join us in Call of Duty. I think it's in a really good spot for organizations like yours and for North America. Like, I don't think there's a better place to be other than maybe CS.
Yeah, there's no Boston-based Call of Duty Pro League team, so
you're not wrong.
Again, it is something that I bring up in various conversations that we have with some investors. And again, it's like the success of the esport title is more is driven by the casual and the player base of the game. So Call of Duty being established for how long it's been, it has that refresh cycle. I call it the iPhone cycle. It's coming out with a new title every year, which isn't bad. It's not a bad thing. It keeps players engaged. It keeps their player numbers high. It continues that interest into the CDL, which is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I want to. So I think don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. But
I mean, you guys are gonna have some stiff competition this year. But yeah, COD's a good place to be, man. I hope to see
absolutely.
You there. I really do.
I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun few months. Yeah,
fun few months. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, I guess with that, I mean, I think we're about to hit our mark. I think we can't talk too much longer. I could probably talk to you for days. I really appreciate you sitting down with me, man. It's really nice to get to sit down and talk with you like this. And I'm sure that we're going to talk to each other a lot over the next few months, building NACS. And is there, before we leave today, is there anything that you want to share? Anything you want to plug? Any content series that you're doing, or obviously socials, stuff like that?
I'll just put socials out for now. If you guys want to, you don't need to. You can follow me. I try to stay more active on Twitter than anything, so it's Mr. Diego GG. Definitely follow the Whalers. I think that's where we're going to have just majority of our announcement and post links to our content. So that's Whalers GG. Yeah, and I'd say keep your antennas up. Just we're going to be rolling out a lot of new content soon, and hopefully making some headlines with some big news in the next, if it's not in the next month or two, it's within the next 45 to 60 days, I'd say. So just keep posted, stay following, and continue supporting NA. Not just NACS computers. As long as we get that support, the Whalers, Triumph, our possibilities are kind of endless as the next up and coming. And thank you again for having me on the podcast. I love,
of course, dude.
Love coming in and joining in with you guys.